Hello and welcome to another edition of Coach's Corner. Every Thursday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern, Coach Serrano and myself, we get to talk to college coaches from all across the country, from all levels and divisions. And our hope and our purpose is to help inform and educate both parents as well as student athletes that are going through the process and looking to educate themselves. Today, we are joined by a newly hired head coach from last summer in 2022, former assistant coach at TCU, and now current head coach at Ohio State, or I guess you call it the Ohio State University, Bill Mosiello. Bill, thank you for joining us today.
Walter, thanks for having me.
Hey, Mo, it's great to see you. As Walter has allowed, when we tour the country and bring on great coaches, it's just ironic that a lot of them are attached to me of growing up. And we have another one with you, a childhood friend for over 50 years. And I want to advise everyone that's on this call that the one thing you're going to hear over the next 30 minutes is the passion that Bill Mosiello brings not only to coaching, but to everything he believes in. So, Mo, it's awesome to have you on. I'm going to jump right into it. You've had an illustrious career. We'll get into that in a minute. But one of the things that I've kind of taken from you, a saying that you have, and why Walter and I do these shows is for kids and families to be educated on what coaches are looking for and what you need to do to be attracted to a coach. You have a saying in your program, how you do anything is how you do everything. Explain to the people that are listening, the recruits and the families, what you mean by that phrase.
I think it means there's nothing that's not important. And I mean, I'm talking about, waking up and making your bed, or how your locker looks, and how you treat your family, and how you treat your friends, and how you treat your girlfriend. And, I just think it all matters, and it really does. And obviously winning, nobody wants to win more than me, but I want to surround myself around great people and great kids. And again, how they do anything is how they do everything. I mean, I've actually seen players before, that I was recruiting. So say I'm at the Lake Point in Perfect Game, and I'm watching a kid that I really like, and I'm sort of following him. And I've had a kid once, and I saw the way he talked to his mom after the game. Mom's trying to give him Gatorade for the 20th time that day. And the way the kid handled the mom and was very just rude to her and things. And he actually was off my list immediately, because I thought, guy, here's mom. And we all know, and Dave and I, no one knows better than Dave and I, how much we wish we had our moms still here. And to see a kid at whatever, 15 to 19 years old, treat his mom like that, and to say, man, your mom is here. She's got 10 Gatorades for you. All she does is wish great things for you, and you don't have the respect to tell her thank you and how much you love her. That really turned me off. And again, I just think there are no little things, and everything is really important.
Well, on that topic, because, when you go on to the world of social media, you hear a lot of people saying all that matters is the skill set. If that young man was throwing 98 from the left side, you wouldn't care about how he treated his mother. Kind of going down that same path, it really does matter on the off the field side, what type of student athlete, how he conducts himself within the community of not only his peers, but the faculty. Can you talk about that when you're evaluating a student athlete, whether it's Lake Point or at a high school game? What are some of the other observations that you're making before they step foot on the field?
So, I think the process usually is like this. You get to the ballpark and you start looking at bodies, you know what I mean? And you start looking at, man, oh, that guy looks the part. Oh, I like that guy. Can't wait to see him play catch. Then maybe, it's a pitcher, and you watch his arm action. You watch his routine. Does he have some professionalism in it? Does he have a plan on what he's doing? So those are things that right away. But then after that, it's about everything. The way he handles his teammates, the way he interacts with his catcher, the way he interacts with his coach. And then the more you get intrigued, and like you said, if I saw that 98, I'm going to watch even more. Man, I hope this is a guy. And then I'm going to watch how after innings, how does he sit in the dugout? Like, does he root on his teammates? Like, I want to watch every single part, because to me, the better the player, the more I expect from him to act like the right type of guy and to be a really good teammate. And like I keep saying, nobody knows more than Dave. Nobody's coached more winning teams than Dave. Nobody's had better pitching staffs than Dave. And the best pitchers that he had were always the best teammates and the best guys, and that's why they won, and that's why they had success. And I think it's so important. I don't think these kids understand, like, when you're trying to have a career, be it at college or in professional, you're not trying to have a 1 month. You're trying to sustain greatness. And I've had it might be over 100 now, because guys get called up all the time that I don't even know to the big leagues, but I have at least over 90 major league players that I coached, managed or coached, and not one of them wasn't a great kid and a great teammate. So when you want to sustain a career, it's all about that. You can't go into a professional or a big league clubhouse and not be the right type of guy around men and sustain and keep a job. So people just don't understand the value and how important that is. And again, you might be so good that you get called up, but you don't stay in the big leagues. You don't get to play for a big league manager if you can't handle yourself like a professional with class. And you can imagine, like, the big leagues it's not like college, or not quite as close, but those guys become really close as teammates. And man, if you can't handle yourself in a great way and become even a great teammate in the big leagues, like, you can't last. Guys don't want to be around you, and they'll run you out of their organization, believe it or not.
Hey, Mo, kind of unique. I know Walter and I have had some listeners write in to talk to someone that has coached at many levels, and it's kind of along the same lines of what you just answered, but you know, you and I have shared the dugout in many fashions, as players, as coaches, on the same staff together. But you've coached at the youth level. You've taken a team, a Connie Mack team, back when Connie Mack was real important. You took a team and won a national championship. You've coached at the junior college level. You've coached at the minor league level. You've coached as an assistant and now as a head coach at the Division I level. What is the separator at every level of the kids that the cream rises to the top, besides ability? And you may have answered that with what you just said, but you've been at so many levels. What have you seen the difference? What's the separator?
Yeah, like you're saying, what you're alluding to, professionalism, the kind of teammate, the way they act, can they sustain? There's certain characteristics to me, is their aptitude, obviously failure recovery, how they can handle failure, but that goes into the kind of character you have as a person. When everything you do is super important and you're good at it, you can handle everything. And how coachable are you? Like, even like you said, I coached everywhere but the big leagues. I haven't never been on a major league staff. I've been very fortunate to be at numerous big league spring training games and be with big league staffs in spring training. So you got to watch how they acted and how an Albert Pujols acted, or a Derek Jeter, and those guys. So it was really awesome to watch them. And they were even better people than they were players. So you learned really early, like, that's why they are who they are. That's why Derek Jeter's the captain, the way he handles himself. We've all seen the documentaries and watched how he is. And man, like, that is as classy as it gets. And it's tough. Like, he's a tough-minded guy, Derek Jeter. Like, there's no goofing around, man. If he didn't like the way you acted, that's why him and A-Rod had some problems. He didn't think A-Rod was the professional that could win a world championship with him. So that's where they had some beefs here and there, that maybe you're making it about him, about yourself, as opposed to the team. So those little things that in college, all we've ever tried to teach our players and how to act and how to behave and are the truest things ever. Being around Mike Trout for the 3 years in the minor leagues and watching what he does. And, Dave was around me when I started bragging about him as an 18-year-old, telling the world like he's going to be the best player ever. And the skill was great, but the person was better than the skill. Like, I was a 40-year-old manager, or whatever my age was. And like, he would strike out with the bases loaded and come to the dugout, put his batting gloves up in there, get right to the rail, like he was in Little League, and cheer on his teammates. Here I was crying that he struck out with the bases loaded because I wanted to have 3 runs. So as an 18-year-old, he's acting like way more mature than I was as a 40-something-year-old that had been around it so much. And I gravitated to, like, that's what it looks like. That's how they acted. And even me having the pleasure to grow up with Dave and watch the way he always handled things as a player and as a coach. And that was exactly the person Dave was. So that the successes that Dave had, that I was able to watch from afar and to see that person that he was becoming, as a 10-year-old. And that's actually the characteristics that Dave had, and the Andy Stankiewicz and the Kirk Sarloses, all the guys that you've had on the shows that I've had the pleasure of watching lately. Like, that was exactly who they were. And I was a little bit different. I have a different personality, and I've admired them from afar so much and tried to emulate them. And I'm so far from becoming them, but I try to work on that every day, because their greatness and the way they handled things was amazing. And that's the exact same thing with players. And that's what we've been trying to teach our players ever since Dave and I started coaching. Like, this is how you behave. This is how you act. It's so important that your teammates love you and value you, because that's going to give you a sustainable career, and it's going to help you win games. I promise you.
One of the,
before you ask, Walter, I'm
yeah.
gonna jump in real quick. Mo, that is a great point that I think is a missing link with so much of this youth baseball and travel baseball now, that it's so much about them and how much they're showing themselves to be recruited. And it's such a bigger picture out there of, and you said the perfect word, sustained success, not over a weekend at Lake Point, sustained success through your high school years, through your 3 or 4 years of college, and then beyond. It takes a lot of mental aptitude to be able to be a great teammate, well, along with being a great player.
I mean, there's no doubt. And as you know, and anybody that's been involved in college baseball, especially at a high level of the teams that are trying to win championships, it's hard for a kid coming in one day at a time. He's got weights at 6 a.m. for the first time. Oh my gosh, he has study hall here. They have that. Like they're on an interview, everything a player does when he steps on campus. So if they're not the right kid and they've been really spoiled through their career and their high school coaches allowed them to just get away with everything because they were such a great player, they won't last. I mean, I can't even venture to tell you what's the percentage of freshmen that when they come into a college program even last into the second year of their college program. And most of the time, it's not because they weren't good enough. It's because they weren't the right guy. The expectations were way too tough on them. Not only were they trying to fight for a job and get playing time, man, they had a tough time making it through the fall and all the weights and all the different demands they have. And that's why that, how you do anything is how you do everything, because it all matters. I'm into second chances, but there always are going to be, you're going to pay the price for what you do wrong. And if you miss a class or you miss weights, and there's going to be repercussions. You're going to be okay. I'm going to give you second chances and even third and fourth sometimes. But guess what? Like, every day you miss and every time you do that, how are you going to play over somebody that's doing it right? So, I mean, these kids are in for the craziest time of their lives when they get into college, and there's no college coach that won't tell you how tough it is. And that's why it's so important that we recruit the right type of kid, and we understand that they understand before they come in that the standard is the standard. And because you hit 600 in high school, we're not going to give in to you. And it's really a tough, and it's an awesome maturation. That's the reason why the college kids do better in professional baseball, is because of what they go through in their college career. It's not even all about the degree. It's how they were learned to have discipline and structure and learn to work on their own and the way they act, the way they behave. And that's why when they get into professional baseball, they're able to zoom up and keep jobs because of what they learned in college. And I'm positive of that after doing 8 years of professional baseball and then all the other stuff in college. And I know that's what makes players.
Dave, it's like we're reading each other's mind there, because one of the things that a lot of parents, and more importantly, the student athletes, fail to recognize is the significance of the jump from high school, not just to Division I, but college athletics and the structure and the routine. And what I'd like you to kind of share with families is there's some devaluing of high school baseball. Travel baseball is all that matters. High school baseball doesn't really matter. Can you just explain to parents it's really all of the above? It's part of being a part of a team, a community, a sense of the we as opposed to the me, but kind of explain to the families in detail that transition from high school athlete to college athlete. It's not necessarily immediate. It's a gradual learning process over that freshman year.
Yeah, I tell everybody all this, and I'm 100% positive. Other guys might argue with me, but through my experiences and things, the jump from high school to college is by far the biggest jump that you will ever have as an athlete. When you get into college, there's so many things. Obviously, now the time constraints, and you have your study hall, and you have your weights, and you have everything. The coaches are now on you on everything you've ever done. If you don't get your lead right at first base, if you didn't, make a good turn, get in the third, if you didn't do a good job with your PFP as a pitcher, you're a middle infielder, you cuts and relays, you're being taught things that you've never heard of. So every single thing, and a freshman goes one step forward and 2 steps backwards. They have never been coached like that. The game speeds up so quick. But once they get into college baseball and they go out to professional, The truth is the game becomes easier because why some of those big time prospects are still learning to be a professional player, the guys from the great college programs are going to pass guys up super quick. And that's why Dave and I and so many of these college coaches have had so many major league players. And you ask any of those guys and they'll always tell me, you're right, man. Like these younger great players, man, they don't know how to run the bases. They don't know how to cover first base. They don't know where to go, man. I'm just going to pass them up. Now, there does come a time when maybe that guy's ability is better than yours, but I still think that you're going to be able to outplay him because you know what's going on. Dave getting the chance to coach Justin Turner and my brother being his high school coach, like guys like Justin Turner, who he actually had really good ability, but we admired him more because of his intelligence and his work ethic and his wanting to win more than anybody. Like there was zero chance that he could hit third in the big leagues, like zero. And Dave can attest, he was with him for 4 years. I was with the Yankees his junior year when we drafted him, and I tried to convince the Yankees, let's give him $100,000. He can actually play shortstop. And I don't know. Well, it won't be great, but he can do it. But his intelligence and things and his work ethic, and then he got into the pro game and started figuring out, making some little adjustments, all because of his intelligence. And the Dodgers are great, but to watch the way he would lead them and his intelligence factor and how he could work a walk, he could hit a home run and shoot a ball to right field with 2 strikes, same things that he had done all his career. And to watch what he did, and Dave and I have been around, that was such an amazing story. But we've had all our players that play in the big leagues, they separated themselves with their intelligence. And it was because what they learned in college, you know what I mean? And I've been around, Mike Trout, the greatest player who, as a 17, 18, and 19-year-old, was so talented, but with great intelligence and the way he handled himself. That's why he was able to have success early. But the jump that you make is absolutely unbelievable going into college. And if you can play every day as a freshman and star, you're going to be that first rounder. Like all the great freshmen that we had end up becoming first rounders. And there's tons of guys that didn't play well as a freshman that still became a first rounder or was a high draft, but he wasn't ready to play as a freshman because his aptitude just wasn't ready, maybe his maturity level. So that jump is by far the toughest one you will ever make.
Hey, Mo, I want to talk a little bit about the program you're leading now. You've been at a long list of very, very distinguished programs. Started at the University of Tennessee or Cal State Fullerton, then University of Tennessee, then Ole Miss, then Oklahoma and USC and Auburn, and back to Tennessee, and then TCU, and now is the head coach at Ohio State. For that recruit and family that's listening, why academically and athletically is Ohio State a great place to come to?
And it starts with the university. It's an elite degree, and you're getting to have one of the things that I learned in college baseball is I think the total college experience is the most important thing. I know you want to go play for a great coach. I know you want to play for the big leagues, but there's a lot of great coaches. I'd love to tell you that I'm the best coach in the country, but I'm not. There's a lot of awesome coaches. I put together an elite staff with great experiences that understand, that have great integrity and great character. They're going to teach their kids to do things the right way, but there's a lot of places that have that. But the total college experience, Ohio State is as special as it gets. Just the way they get to handle themselves there. The student athlete treatment is unbelievable, from our facilities and their training table where they get to eat, in the weight room, and our academic mentors that do everything. So we're setting them up to have great success in life. Nobody's ever dreamt more about the big leagues than me, or wanted to get our players to play in the big leagues. But the older I get every single day, it's about their experience in life. How am I building men? Am I giving them the opportunity to be successful in life? And that's, I've in my last probably 12, 13 years, that's become more important for me every single day. And, Dave and I have older kids that have been through it, and we've seen their ups and downs as players, and we had dreams for them to be in the big leagues. And with Dave, Kyle still fighting that dream, but we've learned, man, we're just trying to develop great kids that can function in society and become a great, that somebody wants to hire because of the person they are, that they can have success. Again, when I talk about sustainable success, and that's, trying to build a kid to become a man so that he can become married and have a family and have a successful job and be able to go on vacations and have a real life in this coaching job. We know how tough it is, and we want our sons to do things like, buddy, I need you to have a real life. Our job's never been a real life. Guys like Dave and I never thought we worked a day in our life. You know what I mean? Because it was just what we did, and it's what we've always done. But we learned how tough it is. But Ohio State's a really special place, and I know there's a lot of awesome places. And here with me is like, no one's going to love their kid more than me. Nobody's going to challenge them more than me. No one's going to have expectations more than me. But I'm going to love them to death. It's not always going to be pretty. They're going to always know where they stand. They're always going to know what they need to work on. But man, I'm going to love them, and I'm going to make sure they're setting themselves up for life. And my staff that I was able to put together, thank goodness they're better than me in all aspects, and that's why I chose them. And it's not hard to do things better than me, but I have a great group around them. We all have the same goals for our kids in our program.
Bill, I get a lot of questions from families that talk about, various conferences and so forth. And the Big Ten is, if I mention Big Ten, I'm in Boston and New England, and we think football, we think Ohio State, Michigan, we think Penn State. The conference, from a baseball perspective, is about to undergo some changes. And do you use that with regard to your recruiting? We got UCLA, USC coming in, and I'm going to start to look at some of my West Coast guys and utilize that part of the country with regard to your recruiting.
We were already on that. Even we had a couple of California commits even before they made that change, and obviously it helps. I don't really sell that very much. I think we have 8 commitments from California. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 next year, and then 2 or 3 in the 24 class. But I think we have 8 California kids, and that only helps it. And I should talk about that a little bit more. Hey, we're going to be coming into your city at least once a year. And we already have the West Coast swing that we're doing so much as it is, and that's what's helped us attract them. And I do think, Dave and I grew up, and Dave and I made a living at Tennessee right away and had great success with California kids, because getting out of California and seeing how incredible the experiences are at football games and just everything, man, it's really alluring to them. So it's different. I do think some kids from California want to get out of that. Dave and I love to go back to California because we still know how neat that place is, but we're also glad when we get to sneak back out too. So, but that's our roots and that's our love. And, when I heard Andy speaking last week, we grew up with exactly what he talked about, but he never got to be like us and go to an SEC or a Big 12 or another place to fall in love with how different it was. So he'd sort of only known that area. And Dave and I basically, when we went out, basically said, hey man, this is where we want to be. I want to make a living here. I want to raise a family. So we saw how special it is. The Big Ten's getting better every day. It only helps us to have UCLA and SC. But to me, I'm so focused still on the group right now. I still sort of forget that they're coming. And it's confusing to me. How are they going to do the schedules and all those things? So I really haven't thought a lot about that. But it's going to be awesome to have them in. I'm not excited about coaching against Andy. I hate coaching against friends. So one of us are going to have to lose, and I know what a great coach he is. So I'm not really excited about playing him, but I don't mind getting to play UCLA. I know Coach Savage is awesome, but I'm a friend of his, but it's not like with Andy and Dave. We know how gut-wrenching losses are. The only good thing about Andy is he handles losses a lot better than I do. So I always tell him, Andy, you can lose a lot better than me, but give me a couple wins right here. It's the end of the world when I lose, but for you, you're going to just get them tomorrow. So that's why I love Andy so much.
Hey, Mo, I want you to touch briefly on how this affects you and your program. You're trying to build a program. Is the new legislation that's just come down, the 40-man roster, the recruitments, how they've cut back on how early you could contact kids, which I'm a big fan of. But as I'm out of the business now, you're trying to build a program. So how does that affect you in a good and bad way in regards to the roster limit or the roster increase, and the fact that you've got to stop recruiting that freshman and sophomore and maybe even the junior high kid now?
That's a great point. I'm going to start with and I truly mean this. I care more about where college baseball is going and all those things and how it affects me personally. So I am elated that we've made these rule changes. I've wanted those changed forever. I think it's going to change the style of coaches' lives. Hopefully, every second we're on call, like I get a freshman calling me in high school, got to answer it. I know exactly who it is. I can't miss his call. It's going to change our lifestyle off the field. In the summers, I don't need to now worry about the freshmen and go see a million freshmen and sophomore games. We're still going to do our due diligence. We have to prepare for that. Those are going to be the guys that at one time that we're going to want to recruit, but we don't need to be there every second. For me personally, when you're up and coming and you're recruiting at a high level and recruiting, lots of players, you're trying to have a little more power by number because we got to get in a lot of players and we're trying to create great competition. I like the 40 man as opposed to 35 because we're trying to bring in a lot of numbers and we're trying to have great competition. A little of my heart's changed a little bit. I always wanted the low numbers of recruits coming in, and man, I hated to have too many kids. But now it's like, man, we need to bring in players, and I want to have competition. And it used to always be, I'd really recruit like, okay, he's going to be my shortstop. We're going to bring in these two guys. But now I'm bringing in more numbers. Obviously, there's only a certain number you can go to. So we're going to go up to that 40, and we'll have probably, 44, 45. And those extra 4 or 5 kids will know coming in, hey, it's going to be a little tougher for you to make it, but here's where you are, but we are going to give you an opportunity. But I'll never be like some schools that are in the 60s and get rid of 20 to 25 guys. I mean, I have a tough enough time sleeping at night, knowing that there's going to be a time next December where I got to get rid of 3 to 4 kids. I don't know how you could do 20 or 25. Like, more power to you, buddy.
Let me ask you this, Mo. Walter and I have talked about this off the air, and we're going to have Kendall Rogers on soon and get some of the legislation updates for our listeners. But don't you think with the NCAA making this move to 40, which there's pros and cons to it for every organization, don't you think they should limit how many kids you could have on your fall roster to prevent exactly what you just said? Those teams that are monopolizing players, bringing in 60, 65 guys, and 20, 25 are going to be out of a program come December.
Yeah, you know the saying, the rich get richer. You know what I mean? And I've never even thought of that, Dave. And of course, man, what a great idea that you maybe you've talked to someone who's brought that up, and that's sort of where you learn. But that would be awesome. Like, that would just be, we're in this for the kids. So like, just and I don't know the number, 47, 45, but so that certain schools can't monopolize all the really good players. And some of those schools, and I'm jealous because I wish I could do it. Like I saw a couple players a couple days ago that are elite guys that would be, I think, pretty good offers from us that, hey, he's got a walk-on spot at such and such school, an SEC school. And I'm like, he's a good player, but like, does he know how many players they already have and how good their guys are? The one thing I'm able to offer, especially pitchers right now, is, buddy, you have a chance to come in and pitch in our rotation. 2 years from now, I hope I never tell a guy that, except for the elite guy, but we're going to have 3 or 4 spots open right now to win jobs. And I hate being there. I like being at TCU where I could say, hey, we got our Sunday spot open, or a Tuesday. I got 2 really good all-conference All-Americans coming back next. We're not there yet. So we're trying to bring in guys to compete for that. But and I'm thinking, man, you know how hard it is going to be for you to pitch for that team? Do you know how many good players? And then with the portal and the NIL money, it's like, buddy, even if they actually had 2 open, I hate to tell you, but they're going to pay 2 guys to come in to fill those spots because of the ability and the arms race that there is in the SEC. And I speak at that, not degrading them, just in pure jealousy. But yeah, limiting a number and a certain thing to not do that to kids. And in some ways, I do like the fact that they have the toughness and you're chasing a dream. And I do believe in shooting for the stars. We got kids coming here that aren't on scholarship but the cost is so little for Ohio. I'm going to give them an absolute fair opportunity to be a guy. But the numbers are only going over 5 or 6, not 15 to 20. So when I do tell them that, like, I've had some kids that are coming here on non-scholarship, but I even waited an extra 2-3 weeks because I wanted to see my numbers, because I wanted to tell the family, hey, I believe you have roughly about an 80% chance. Now, if you're okay with a 30% chance and you're still willing to do it, okay, I'm all right. But I wanted it to be in the 80s to really feel that you're going to have a fair chance to make the club. And then I know I spoke to them and what I told them. And if in December I have to have that talk, well, Johnny just wasn't good enough to make the club. And I warned you about this. My key is transparency and being authentic with every family. And every talk I've had is going to be like, they're going to know we talked about this. I told you how tough it was going to be. You know what I mean? So like I can sleep at night saying, hey, we had these discussions earlier. But I do know looking the kid in the eye in December and saying, hey, it's not going to work for you here, how tough that's still going to be. Like, the one thing Dave knows is like the one neat thing about being an assistant was, luckily my head coaches really valued me. And I felt great, but it was really easy for me to say, Dave, we got to get this guy and this guy and this guy. But guess what? I was still going to have to be a part because I recruited the family the whole time, but I wasn't the head coach and had to look in the eyes and say, okay, sorry, Johnny, you're not going to make it. Now, of course, a lot of times I'm in the meeting with them and there's certain things, but there's nothing like being in the so-called, chief seat and say, hey, sorry. And then your assistant was great when he recruited me, but they're upset at you as the head coach because you're the one that got rid, And then we all know that all of us assistants, we value what they do. And like we all made that decision. The head coach very rarely makes the decision and says, yeah, everybody else loves you, but I don't want you. Like, who knows in those closed door meetings, some head coaches only do closed door. And maybe sometimes they're saying, hey, Johnny, I'm the one that wanted to keep you, but Dave told me you're not right. So maybe some of them do that. And maybe I'm going to come up with some tricks to do that because, being the one that tells them. But again, I've told every kid that is in that position, I've told 100% what you're up against. And even the scholarship kids, and this is where I'm maybe a little different and being authentic, and transparent. Even a kid on the biggest scholarship I've ever coached, I've talked to them as a family and said, hey, if for some reason you're not a fit or you don't like it here, I'm going to be honest with you. Now you're on a scholarship. We have to, honor that. But if I don't think you're a fit here, I'm always going to let you know. As a parent that's done this with my boys, please just be honest with me. If you don't really feel my son's a part of your program, be honest. Tell me the truth. It might be hard for a minute, but as long as I'm doing what I think is best for every kid every year, I think that's just what's right. And we all know, again, with the portal, if I lie and I'm a used car salesman, everything I told you is not true, they get to go out the door any second they want. So I think doing the right thing and treating families right and every kid the way you'd want your own kid to be treated, if you're not doing that, it'll catch up to you. There's no doubt.
Yeah. Last question from me, Bill, and it's kind of something that's on every parent's mind, that I talked to recently. Roster increased to 40. Now we get 32 that you can divvy up scholarship, but that number of 11.7, do you foresee or would you like to see an increase in that number to kind of bring it into the same realm as, the footballs and the basketballs and the full scholarships?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, and I've always believed, and I thought there was I really thought even that this year that we were going to get to 25. I'd always heard that from people, and especially the head coaches that have been really involved in all that really have a good say. And I had always felt pretty good about it. And I just think what happens is college baseball is the best it's ever been with everything that's going on. And I think that people from afar say, hey, college baseball is doing better than it ever has. Why would we change? It's doing great. You guys are somehow making it work. Let's not change, which is the farthest thing from the truth for the families and the kids and what us coaches go through. Roster management is the number one ability to build a successful program is your roster management, which has to be, it's not easy, and you learn and you acquire that ability. But I sure hope so and pray, but I don't know. Every time I think it's going to happen, it never happens. And then with the NIL, so now we're trying to stretch the money and everybody has different ways with that. And and again, the rich get richer because the programs that don't really need it now, the NIL, it's an arms race for them. And the stories you hear and the reality of some of that is just mind-boggling. And luckily, we're not at that stage. We're going to raise NIL money, just help with the cost. And maybe, hey, we're going to be able to give you more money than you had in your scholarship. So now we can give an out-of-state guy more money for his scholarship. Like, so we're more going to do it to help families financially and to get better players, and then help some of the in-state kids so they can actually not pay as much.
Well, Mo, this has been fabulous. Another great show that Walter and I brought on, another great guest. And for the listeners out there, I want you, it didn't take very long for you to understand that Coach Mo is very passionate, believes in what he believes in. I've seen it firsthand. Mo said it himself. He's going to push you in his program. He's going to push you to the limit. But at the end of the day, he's going to love on you because he knows what's the most important thing. So, Mo, great as always to talk to you. Walter, what you don't realize is Mo and I used to have these conversations as 10, 11, 12-year-olds on the phone all the time from our home phone. And I wish we would have done podcasts then, because I think we could have educated people. A lot of times it was about the Big Red Machine versus the Dodgers. He loved the Big Red Machine and I was a Dodger fan. But I think that's why both of us became coaches. We were average players that made ourselves good players because of our work ethic. And we became coaches because we didn't have a professional career, and the way of staying in baseball was to coach kids and get them to that level. So, Mo, as always, I love you. Great to see you. And we would really appreciate your time, and go Buckeyes.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Walter and Dave, what you guys are doing to educate these parents is second to none, and I'm so proud of the job that you guys are doing. And Dave, love you, and thanks for always being there for me. Have a great day, Walter.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. And I want to let everybody know that next week's guest is going to be an associate head coach at the University of Arizona. David Lawn is going to join Coach Serrano and myself. We're going to talk a little bit about the Pac-12 and Arizona baseball. Any questions about, Coach Bill Mosiello, Ohio State, Big Ten, anything like that, drop us some comments. We'll make sure we get to you and answer your questions. Thank you for joining us, and join us next